What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of My Dogs Are Quivering Under My Desk because it's the 4th of July weekend and everyone is blowing off fireworks a couple of days early. As always, I'm your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about Damian Lillard time coming to an end in Portland. Folks, Dame time is unofficially over. I say unofficially, of course, because there hasn't been any deal involved with Dame. It's merely just been him formally requesting a trade from the organization that drafted him back in 2012, 2011. This is a move that I don't really think surprises anybody. I personally am not surprised by this. The ingredients make too much sense. You have Dame, who is getting a little bit older, despite playing some of the best basketball of his career, statistically coming off the best season of his career. He's getting older. He wants to contend for a championship. Undeniably one of the greatest point guards of his generation, also one of the NBA's 75 best players of all time. But the one thing that his resume is lacking is that championship. And the Blazers have simply been unable to build a contender around Damian Lillard. This news broke a few days ago. I'm currently recording this on Sunday evening. It's about 6 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know when this is going to be posted. It might be posted later Sunday night, and it might be posted early Monday, but just know that this is all of the latest reports at the time of recording. I do know that these things happen mighty fast in the NBA, especially when teams are radio silent. So this entire video, the contents of this video could already be out of date by the time it's posted, but I feel like my take will more or less be the same unless, of course, he winds up going to a team that I didn't imagine. To kick things off, I'm going to read the report from ESPN. Adrian Wojnarowski contributed to this. I believe Ramona Shelburne contributed to this as well. It reads, Portland Trailblazers guard Damian Lillard has requested a trade after spending the first 11 seasons of his career with the team. Quote, we've been clear that we want Dame here, but he notified us today that he wants to be out and he'd prefer to play somewhere else. Portland general manager Joe Cronin said in a statement on Saturday. No relation, by the way. He continues, quote, what has not changed for us is that we're committed to winning and we're going to do what's best for the team in pursuit of that goal. The Miami Heat, LA Clippers, and Philadelphia 76ers are three teams that will have interest in exploring trades for Lillard. Lillard's preferred preference is to be traded to Miami, a source told Anscape's Mark J. Spears. Lillard also has deep respect for the San Antonio Spurs organization, sources told Shelburne. Another team that is not mentioned in here but has been linked to Damian Lillard is, of course, my Brooklyn Nets. It seemingly Lillard and McCall Bridges have a very close relationship. They seem fond of one another. I'm sure, they're friendly and would love to play with one another, but I don't know how realistic that is, especially with Brooklyn moving on from Joe Harris and also re-signing Cam Johnson for a 4-year deal worth, I think, like $27 million annually. Front offices talking to Portland on Saturday were left with the impression that Cronin is pursuing a star-level return for Lillard and that the GM plans to look well beyond the Heat to find one. The Blazers are expected to value deals that would bring them young players and draft assets. This is interesting considering the fact that really none of these teams have what Portland is looking for. Miami can't really offer them any young prospects, especially now that Gabe Vincent's gone and Max Strus is gone. Obviously, any potential deal with Miami would include Tyler Hero, and I believe Bobby Marks mentioned that Miami only has 2 firsts that they could part with, one in 2028 and one in 2030. I believe the Clippers have no young talent at all. Really, that team is definitely on the older side with Kawhi, with PG, with Russell Westbrook. Just really does not have, especially the draft capital that Portland is looking for. And the Philadelphia 76ers also really don't have any of that. Of course, they do have Tyrese Maxey. There's some stuff going on with James Harden as well. There have been reports linking, I think, the Clippers and the Knicks to James Harden potentially. But just know that as it stands, I'm going to put my meat on the table. I'm going to put my meat and potatoes on the table. I think that Dame does wind up going to Miami for no other reason than the fact that the team wants to do right by him. I feel that although Joe Cronin knows that sending Dame to Miami is not in the best interest of his organization, I think that there is a deep reverence and a deep appreciation for how Damian Lillard has conducted himself over this last decade or so. Continuing with the article, Lillard has contemplated requesting a trade when he met with the Blazers and Cronin on Monday, but wanted to give them every opportunity to improve the roster as free agency opened, so he remained as quiet and supportive as he could this week. On Friday night, he made the decision to ask for the trade. You add in, of course, them drafting Scoot Henderson. They have Shaedon Sharpe. They have Anthony Simons as well. They did also just sign, informally, of course, Jeremy Grant to a 5-year, $160 million deal, which basically means that Portland they're done. They cannot make any moves to improve this roster to a level that would, I think, satisfy Damian Lillard. He said, well, there were inklings that he was not interested in being a member of a rebuilding team, which obviously is clear by him requesting this trade. I did see a quote aggregated from one of those Twitter accounts, so I don't know how factual it is, but there was a reported longing, maybe not a longing, but an interest in Dame teaming up with a quote-unquote stacked team, which NBA Twitter kind of embellished a little bit, because it's not that Dame is running from the grind. Dame does not run from the grind. Dame, I stay on the grind. Lillard stuck with Portland for all these years because he wanted to make a name for himself with this franchise, and ultimately he understands that the nature of the NBA as it stands is that if you want to compete for titles, you have to go to teams that already have a surplus of talent. It may not have to be 3 superstars, but you need at least 1 superstar, and at the minimum, a second all-star, potentially even a third all-star, and maybe even a second superstar. Like, you need to have 3 all-star caliber players on a team in the NBA if you're looking to contend for any sort of title. And I think that was ultimately what did it for Dame. I, of course, have no dog in this race. I have no sources. I am merely a guy on the internet. I came out of the shower and recorded this video. There is nothing special about me. I hadn't talked about this really at all because I don't want to say I hate the gossipy nature of the NBA, but just like as a content creator, I don't want to be making 4, 5, 6 videos on one topic, dealing with all the rumors, especially in this case, because Chris Haynes tweeted out like 13 different reports about Dame, and it got to a point where it's like, okay, I don't want to fucking hear anything more about Damian Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers. This is the one piece of news worth covering in this scenario. It's worth covering, of course, because anytime you have a hyper talented player, an all NBA caliber player, these talks and these speculations can go in a multitude of different ways because there are so many different ways for the organizations to go about moving these players. Will they end up with like a Rudy Gobert type situation? I mean, probably not, because Dame is obviously better than Rudy Gobert, but you want a return like how we saw in the Donovan Mitchell trade. You want a return like how we saw in the Kevin Durant trade. Damian Lillard is worth 3 or 4 first-round picks. It's just a matter of what are the logistics to get there. And as I already mentioned, the Miami Heat, I think he's going there. I think that Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and Nikola Jovic, that is the package that Bobby Marks mentioned when they were covering this on ESPN over the weekend. A couple of first-round picks. More than likely, there will be a third, potentially even a 4th team involved, because the Blazers want these draft assets. All right, young players are good. Tyler Hero would be a very solid player on the Portland Trailblazers, but ultimately, you need draft picks nowadays. If the more draft picks you have, the luckier you can get, the more opportunity you have to get lucky. I mean, obviously, that's not the only way to rebuild an NBA team, but they're nice to have. They're nice to have, and especially, you never know. Maybe in a couple of years, Shaedon Sharpe blossoms, Anthony Simons blossoms. Again, if they do acquire Tyler Hero, next thing you know, you may be in the position to land a superstar. Like, who knows what's going to happen, Luka Doncic? We don't, and you have all of those draft assets, but I'm getting way off into a tangent here. But it's going to be very fascinating to see how this plays out. And I don't think that this is something that's going to get done right away. I would not be surprised if these negotiations went until like August or September. And I guarantee that as I'm saying this, the trade will happen. That's just my luck. So, yeah, I think Dame goes to Miami. with that, Miami's roster is super fascinating because they are, again, without Gabe Vincent, who went to the Lakers, quality signing by them. They also are now without Max Strus, who I believe is going to Cleveland, if I remember correctly. I'm just taking a quick peek at their salary situation. You have Bam, you have Jimmy Butler, you have Kyle Lowry. Jimmy Butler, this is for the upcoming season, by the way. So you have Jimmy Butler, Bam, Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. I figure those two are going to be gone if any trade does materialize. Caleb Martin, Kevin Love. They also just signed Josh Richardson, Thomas Bryant as well. You have Haywood Highsmith on a on a minimum contract. I don't know what the fuck word I was trying to say there. On a minimum contract. So adding Damian Lillard makes Miami super frightening because obviously you have a guy who can create points from anywhere on the court. He's a damn good facilitator as well. Everything that they lacked offensively in the playoffs and really ultimately throughout the season would be fixed with Damian Lillard. You have someone who can manufacture offense. You have a reliable three-level scorer. You also have someone who can play a two-man game with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. You also have a point guard who can play away from the ball. So feasibly, you could run a Kyle Lowry, Damian Lillard lineup for a few minutes with Jimmy Butler, with Bam. I don't know who the four would be in that situation. Maybe it's Kevin Love, but I think, of course, it would be a fantastic acquisition for whoever does sign Dame. You're already looking at a list of contenders, and your case is made only that much stronger by adding Dame. And I'm also not too concerned about him on defense because Miami historically has had elite defenses under Eric Spoelstra. Again, with Bam, with Jimmy Butler, with Kyle Lowry. And I mean, you're not really losing a lot of defense with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson anyway. You're mainly just losing floor spacing, and Duncan Robinson's minutes haven't really been the same since he signed that contract extension. And you're getting an upgrade over Tyler Hero. I mean, Hero is great, and Miami missed him considerably throughout these playoffs. But Damian Lillard is one of the 75 greatest NBA players of all time. I think that if you're Miami, you have to try. You have to try because, like, you don't have many more seasons of this. And especially the Bucks retooled. The Bucks re-signed Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. They're going to be in contention. The Boston Celtics are a new look team. They got Kristaps Porzingis. They lost Marcus Smart, but more or less, they're still the same team. I'm very excited to see how all of this plays out. Ultimately, I think Damian Lillard goes to Miami. I think it's a 3-team minimum at the very least. I don't think that Portland gets too hung up on getting a 4th-round pick if they already know they're going to get 3. And really, I feel that they're going to do right by Damian Lillard. I'm using the Brooklyn Nets as an example. The Nets, when they knew that they were getting rid of Kyrie and, shortly trading Kevin Durant thereafter, they sent him to Phoenix because they wanted to do right by him because he had been a stand-up guy throughout all the drama, throughout all of the bullshit that had gone on throughout the organization, and never once, well, I mean, well, I don't want to say never once because, there was that one whole incident, but again, if you guys are familiar with my takes, you know that I think that trade request was kind of bullshit, but, didn't want to leave the team throughout the season up until they had parted ways with Kyrie. And you compare Kevin Durant to Brooklyn, to Damian Lillard in Portland, I think it would be silly for Portland to just take all the good that Dame has brought to the organization and tarnish it. But I do understand that there are demons in the front offices of these NBA teams, and they are by no obligation beholden to make anybody happy but themselves. Ultimately, I feel that, it's just not going to go that way with the Portland Trail Blazers, only because it's Damian Lillard. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this episode. I thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. Everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Comment as well. It really helps out in the algorithm. And with that, I'll catch you on the next one. Stay safe this July 4th, you crazy fucks. Alcohol and explosives do not mix. Be responsible. And I'll catch you on the next one.